The smooth metal doors of Classroom 7B slid open with a soft hiss. Professor Zixfoon floated in, his 6 tentacles gently waving as he moved to the center of the room. The 30 students of the advanced xenobiology class at the Galactic Academy quieted down immediately. Today marks the beginning of your final research project, Professor Zixfoon announced, his voice translator giving his words a pleasant hum. Each team will select one planet from the uncontacted systems database. You will study its environment, any life forms present, and determine its classification in the Galactic Index. Krelax tapped his claw nervously on his desk. His purple skin darkened slightly with excitement as he leaned toward his friends. "This is our chance to discover something truly unique," he whispered. Beside him, Morby's 8 eyes blinked in sequence. "Just as long as we don't get stuck with another gas giant. I'm still having nightmares about those floating bacteria from last semester." Their 3rd team member, Pelqua, was already scrolling through the database on her screen. Unlike her friends with their solid bodies, Pelqua was a semi-transparent being whose organs were visible as colorful shapes floating in her gel-like form. "Look at this one," she said, pointing a wobbly finger at a small blue dot. "It's called Earth, 3rd planet in a system with a yellow star. It has liquid water and a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere." Krelax leaned closer. "Oxygen. That's highly reactive. Not many species can survive that." "Exactly," Pelqua replied. "But the scans show life forms. Lots of them." Morby's eyes widened. "A planet with oxygen and life. That's rare. Most planets with so much free oxygen wouldn't support complex organisms. It's too corrosive." Professor Zixfoon drifted over to their table. "Have you made your selection, students?" Pelqua's body rippled with confidence. "Yes, Professor. We'd like to study Earth." The professor's skin changed from blue to a thoughtful green. "Earth. An interesting choice. Our database has limited information on that world. It's in a rather isolated part of the galaxy." "That's why we want it," Krelax said. "We're hoping to find something new." The professor's tentacles curled in what the students recognized as amusement. "Very well. But remember, sometimes the database classifications can be misleading. Approach your research with an open mind." After the professor moved away, the 3 friends huddled around their screens. Pelqua pulled up the basic data on Earth. Average temperature varies from -60 to +50 degrees on their scale, she read. "That's a huge range." Morby shuddered, his exoskeleton making a clicking sound. No species could survive those extremes without advanced technology. "And look at this," Krelax added. "The planet has active tectonics, earthquakes, volcanoes, and extreme weather patterns, including massive storms and electrical discharges from the sky." Pelqua's normally transparent body clouded with concern. Maybe this wasn't such a good choice after all. How could anything intelligent evolve in such conditions? "That's what makes it perfect," Krelax insisted. "If we find even primitive life forms adapting to these conditions, it would make for an exceptional report." Morby tapped a complex equation into his calculator. According to the Galactic Classification System, these conditions would qualify Earth as a potential death world. A death world. Pelqua's voice rose, like in the old horror stories. Krelax's purple skin darkened with excitement. "Think about it. No one's done serious research on a death world in decades. This could be groundbreaking." Professor Zixfoon's voice interrupted their discussion. "Remember, students, you have 3 weeks to complete your analysis. Use all available resources, but do not attempt to make contact with any intelligent species you might discover." The 3 friends looked at each other. The chance to study a possible death world was thrilling, even if the professor's warning about classifications being misleading suggested they might be disappointed. "Let's get started," Krelax said, already dividing the research tasks. "Morby, you focus on the atmospheric conditions. Pelqua, you analyze the geological activity. I'll begin scanning for life form patterns." None of them realized that their simple class assignment was about to change their understanding of life in the universe forever. 3 days into their research, the alien students gathered in their private study pod. Her room was filled with holographic displays showing various aspects of Earth. Krelax's purple skin had paled slightly from lack of sleep. "I can't believe these readings," he said, pointing to a swirling mass of clouds on the main screen. "This storm system has winds strong enough to tear the roof off a building. They call it a hurricane, and they happen regularly." Morby clicked his claws together nervously. "The atmospheric composition is even more disturbing than we thought. 21% oxygen. That's not just corrosive. It's downright explosive under the right conditions." Pelqua's gel-like body rippled with excitement as she added her findings. "The planet's crust is broken into pieces they call tectonic plates. They're constantly moving, causing earthquakes. Some areas have hundreds of small quakes every day." "And look at this," Krelax said, pulling up a new image. "These are called volcanoes. They're basically holes where the planet's molten interior erupts onto the surface." Morby's 8 eyes blinked rapidly in sequence, a sign of his distress. "So this planet has toxic air, violent storms, moving ground and mountains that explode. How could anything live there, let alone evolve intelligence?" Pelqua moved to another display showing temperature variations across Earth's surface. Some regions go from freezing to boiling within a single planetary rotation. There are places called deserts where almost nothing can survive, and polar regions covered in frozen water. Krelax rubbed his tired eyes. "I've been running simulations on how these conditions would affect us." He tapped a command, and a hologram appeared showing what would happen to each of their species on Earth. The simulation of Krelax's body quickly developed severe burns from the sun's radiation, while his respiratory system failed from oxygen poisoning. The Morby simulation showed his exoskeleton cracking from temperature changes, followed by quick dehydration. Pelqua's simulation was the most disturbing. Her gel-like body simply evaporated in Earth's atmosphere. "We'd all die within minutes," Morby said quietly. Pelqua moved closer to the main display, her curiosity overcoming her horror. "But there is life there. Complex life, even. Look at these ocean readings. There are thousands of different species." Krelax nodded. "And not just simple organisms. Some of these creatures are quite large and seem to have complex nervous systems. Maybe they evolved in the oceans where conditions are more stable and never moved to land," Morby suggested. Pelqua adjusted the scanner. "No, there's life everywhere, even in those extreme deserts and frozen regions. Whatever lives on this planet has adapted to survive conditions that would kill most galactic species instantly." Krelax was quiet for a moment, then pulled up a new series of scans. "I think we need to focus our research more precisely. These readings suggest something unusual in the Northern Hemisphere. There are regular patterns that don't seem natural." The 3 students zoomed in on the area Krelax indicated. As the image clarified, they fell silent. Clear, geometric shapes appeared on the landscape, straight lines, perfect circles, and rectangular structures. "Are those artificial?" Morby whispered. "They have to be," Pelqua replied, her body turning a pale blue with shock. "Natural formations don't make patterns like that." Krelax adjusted the scanners again. "And look at this. The planet is surrounded by a web of artificial signals. Radio waves, microwaves, various electromagnetic emissions." Morby's exoskeleton rattled slightly. "That can only mean one thing." Pelqua finished his thought. "Intelligent life. Technologically advanced intelligent life. On a Deathworld," Krelax added. "A species has not only survived these conditions, but thrived enough to develop technology." Morby began frantically typing on his console. "We need to intercept these signals. If we can decode them, we might learn more about these creatures." As the computer began processing the Earth transmissions, the 3 students looked at each other, a mixture of fear and excitement washing over them. Their simple class assignment had just become much more interesting, and potentially frightening than any of them had imagined. The study pod was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. A week had passed since the alien students began their research on Earth. The walls were now covered with images of the blue planet and its inhabitants. "I finished translating their main languages," Morby announced, his voice tired but excited. "There are thousands of them, but I focused on the most common ones. Their species calls itself human or humanity." Krelax looked up from his own work. "Humans, and they're the dominant species." "Completely dominant," Pelqua confirmed, her transparent body swirling with purple excitement. "They've spread to nearly every corner of the planet, even the places that should be uninhabitable." She pulled up images on the main screen. "Look at this settlement. It's built in a place they call Alaska, where temperatures drop far below freezing. And this one is in a desert where daytime temperatures can cook most proteins." Morby clicked a button, and a video began playing. It showed humans walking through a snowstorm, their bodies wrapped in artificial coverings. "They can't survive these conditions naturally," he explained. "Their bodies are actually quite fragile compared to the environment. But they've developed these coverings they call clothes and built structures to control their local environment." Krelax leaned forward. "Adaptability through technology rather than evolution." "Interesting. It's more than that," Pelqua said. "Look at this footage." The screen changed to show a human building on fire. As the three aliens watched, another human ran into the flames. "What is it doing?" Krelax asked, his purple skin paling. "That's certain death." Morby checked his translation. "According to their broadcasts, this is something called a firefighter named Greg Mitchell. He's deliberately entering the dangerous situation to save others of his kind." "That makes no logical sense," Pelqua said, her body quivering. "Risking certain harm to help others. Most species would flee from such danger." Krelax tapped his claws thoughtfully. "Perhaps this is an isolated case of irrational behavior." "Far from it," Morby replied. "I found thousands of similar examples. Humans regularly put themselves in danger to help others, even strangers. They call it heroism and celebrate it." The screen changed again, showing humans in small boats on a stormy ocean. "These humans are traveling across water during dangerous conditions to reach others who are stranded," Pelqua explained. "The waves could easily destroy their vessels and kill them all. Their entire history is filled with this behavior," Morby added. "They seem to have evolved not just to survive their dangerous world, but to actively confront its dangers." Krelax brought up another image showing humans climbing an ice-covered mountain. "And sometimes they face these dangers for no reason at all," he said. "These humans are deliberately climbing this hazardous peak. There's nothing at the top. They're doing it simply because it's difficult and dangerous." Pelqua's body turned a pale green with confusion. "Perhaps they're not as intelligent as we thought. Maybe they don't understand the risks." "Quite the opposite," Morby said. "Their scientific understanding is less advanced than ours, but they fully comprehend the dangers. They have detailed statistics on injury and death rates for various activities. So they know they might die, but do it anyway." Krelax asked. "Exactly," Morby replied. "And there's something else strange. Look at this brain scan I captured from their medical databases." The screen displayed an image of a human brain with certain areas highlighted. When humans face danger, these areas become active and release chemicals that improve their physical performance. Their muscles get stronger, their reactions faster, and they can temporarily ignore pain. Pelqua's body rippled with shock. They evolved a biological mechanism to become more efficient in dangerous situations. Most species freeze or flee from danger. Humans do both of those too, Krelax noted. But they also have this third option, to become more effective and fight back against whatever threatens them. The three students were quiet for a moment, contemplating the implications. "We need to report this to Professor Zixwoon immediately," Morby finally said. "A species that evolved on a Deathworld, adapted to confront rather than avoid danger, and is now developing advanced technology. This could have serious implications for the galaxy. Professor Zixwoon's office was small but elegant, with strange plants from a dozen worlds decorating the shelves. The professor's skin had turned a deep blue as he reviewed the students' findings on his screen. "This is most unusual," he said finally. "You're certain about these observations?" Krelax nodded. "We've triple-checked everything, Professor. Humans not only survive on a Deathworld, but they seem almost designed for it." "Show me your physiological analysis," the professor requested. Pelqua stepped forward, her gel-like body rippling with excitement. "We've compiled data from their medical records and broadcasts. Human physical capabilities are remarkable when viewed in context." She activated a hologram showing the human body. Their skin is relatively thin and vulnerable compared to most sentient species, easily damaged by heat, cold, or sharp objects. Yet they can survive injuries that would kill most galactic citizens. The hologram changed to show medical images of injured humans. "This human survived after a metal rod went through his skull," Morty explained. "This one lost half her blood volume, but recovered completely. This one had severe burns over 60% of his body and lived." "Their medical technology must be very advanced," Professor Zixwoon suggested. "That's what's so strange," Krelax said. "Their medicine is primitive by our standards. They survive through sheer biological resilience. Their bodies can repair incredible damage given time." Pelqua brought up a new hologram showing a human female running. "This is Nancy Fuller participating in something called a marathon. She's voluntarily running 42 kilometers without stopping." "For what purpose?" the professor asked. "Recreation," Morby answered. "They do it for enjoyment and personal achievement. Their muscles tear and repair during the process, becoming stronger. They deliberately stress their bodies to improve them." The professor's tentacles curled in surprise. "Most species avoid physical stress. It's inefficient and potentially harmful. Humans seek it out," Krelax said. "They have activities called sports and exercise, specifically designed to stress their bodies." Pelqua changed the display again. "Their bones can knit back together after breaking. Their skin regenerates. They even have organs that can partially regrow after damage. And their reproduction is equally resilient," Morty added. "Humans can reproduce in almost any environment on their planet, regardless of temperature, altitude, or available resources." The professor was silent for a moment, absorbing this information. "What about their psychological profile?" Krelax looked down at his notes. "That's perhaps the most disturbing part. Humans have evolved to be highly adaptable mentally. They can normalize almost any environment or situation, no matter how hostile. They live in deserts, Arctic regions, high mountains, even floating on the ocean," Pelqua added. "After a short adjustment period, they consider these normal living conditions." Morby clicked his claws together nervously, "and they're driven to explore. Throughout their history, they've deliberately sought out the most dangerous parts of their already dangerous world. This combination of physical resilience and psychological adaptability makes them uniquely suited for space exploration," Krelax concluded. "If they ever develop faster than light travel." The professor's skin darkened with concern. "Have they achieved space flight yet?" "Primitive versions, yes," Pelqua answered. "They'd visited their moon and sent probes to nearby planets. Their technology is advancing rapidly." "Most concerning," Professor Zixwoon said quietly. "A Deathworld species in space could be very dangerous indeed. But also beneficial," Krelax suggested. "Think about it, Professor. Most galactic species evolved on worlds with stable, supportive environments. Humans evolved to thrive amid chaos and danger. They could survive conditions that would kill most of us instantly. They could potentially inhabit worlds we consider uninhabitable," Pelqua added. "Or they could view our worlds as paradises ripe for taking," Morty countered. "Their history shows they often compete fiercely for resources." Professor Zixwoon's tentacles twisted thoughtfully. "We need more information before reaching conclusions," Continue your research, but focus now on their social structures and conflict resolution methods. If these humans ever join galactic society, we need to know if they would come as friends or conquerors. Back in their study pod, the three alien students were surrounded by new displays showing human social interactions. They had been working for days without much rest, fascinated by what they were discovering. Their social structures are as paradoxical as their physiology, Morby said, his 8 eyes blinking with fatigue. Look at these 2 examples. The screen showed a human conflict zone with people fighting, followed by footage of humans forming a chain to rescue others from a flood. They can be incredibly violent toward each other, yet also show remarkable cooperation and self-sacrifice, Morby continued, sometimes within the same communities. Pelqua's transparent body had darkened from exhaustion, her internal organs moving sluggishly. They formed strong bonds in small groups, especially family units. This seems to be the basis of their cooperation. But they can extend this cooperation to complete strangers in emergencies, Krelax added. They call it pulling together in a crisis. It's like they become a single organism when facing external threats. The screens changed to show children playing on tall metal structures. These young humans are engaging in controlled risk, Pelqua explained. Their parents allow it, even encourage it. See how the children deliberately climb to dangerous heights. Morby zoomed in on a playground where 2 boys, Billy Harris and Kevin Wong, were racing to the top of a climbing structure. They're training their young to handle danger and pain from an early age, he said. This is very different from how most galactic species raise their offspring. Krelax pointed to another screen showing a human watching something called a horror movie. This is perhaps the most bizarre behavior we found, he said. Humans deliberately seek out simulated danger and fear for entertainment. It makes no evolutionary sense, Pelqua said. Why would any species want to feel fear when they're actually safe? I have a theory, Krelax replied. Since their world is so dangerous, they need to practice their fear responses in controlled situations. It's like training. Morby pulled up more footage. These humans are deliberately jumping from high places with only thin fabric to slow their fall. They call it parachuting. And these ones are climbing vertical rock faces without safety equipment. Recreation again, Professor Zixvoon asked, floating into the study pod unexpectedly. The 3 students straightened up in respect. Yes, Professor, Pelqua answered. They call these extreme sports. The participants know they might die, but do them anyway for something called the thrill. The professor's skin turned a thoughtful shade of green. A species that enjoys the sensation of fear. Remarkable. There's more, Krelax said. Their entertainment is filled with simulated danger. They create stories about disasters, monsters, and wars. They seem obsessed with their own mortality. The professor moved closer to the screens. What about their conflict resolution? How do they handle disputes? Morby clicked to a new display. They've created complex systems of rules they call laws and institutions to enforce them. But these vary greatly across different regions. Their history shows constant evolution in this area, Pelqua added. They've slowly developed organizations to resolve conflicts without violence, both within and between their nations. But they still have wars, Krelax noted, though fewer and less destructive than in their past. Professor Zixvoon's tentacles curled thoughtfully. So they're learning. That's encouraging. There's something else you should see, Professor, Morby said hesitantly. We've been monitoring their global communications network called the Internet. They're actively discussing the possibility of alien life. He brought up images of human science fiction films showing contact with aliens. Some depicted peaceful meetings, others showed violent invasions. They're preparing themselves mentally for the possibility of our existence, Pelqua explained. Some fear us, others welcome the idea. And they're sending deliberate messages into space, Krelax added. They want to be found. Professor Zixvoon was silent for a long moment. This changes things. The Galactic Council needs to know about Earth immediately. A species this adaptable and resilient, actively seeking contact with alien life, requires careful consideration. Are they a threat, Professor? Pelqua asked. That, the professor replied, is exactly what the council must decide. Word spread quickly through the Galactic Academy. Students and professors gathered in the Great Hall, their various appendages and sensory organs focused on the central platform, where the three students stood nervously. The Galactic Council had sent an official representative, Counselor Drevexa, a tall being with crystalline skin that sparkled under the lights. Present your findings, the counselor said, her voice chiming like small bells. Krelak stepped forward, his purple skin darkened with seriousness. Our research began as a simple class assignment, but what we discovered about Earth and its dominant species has significant implications for galactic security. The room dimmed, and a large hologram of Earth appeared above them. Earth is what many of us would classify as a death world, Krelax continued. It has extreme temperature variations, dangerous weather patterns, tectonic instability, high oxygen content, intense radiation from its star, and large areas of water where land creatures can easily drown. Murmurs spread through the audience. Death worlds were rare and typically avoided by galactic travelers. Despite these conditions, or perhaps because of them, humans have evolved to be remarkably resilient, Pelqua said, moving forward. Her gel-like body was properly formal, her internal organs aligned in the respectful pattern. She activated a series of historical images. Throughout their history, humans have not merely survived their harsh environment. They have actively explored and conquered it. The images showed human explorers crossing oceans in small wooden ships, climbing the highest mountains, traversing vast deserts, and venturing into frozen wastelands. This is Alan Rivera, Pelqua explained, highlighting one image. He led an expedition across an ocean in a vessel made only of wood, using just wind power and primitive navigation tools. Many similar expeditions ended with all humans dying, yet they continued to attempt these dangerous journeys. More murmurs from the audience, these with tones of disbelief. Morby clicked forward to display more images. This is the Porter family who traveled into an uninhabited region during winter. They built simple shelters from local materials and survived temperatures that would freeze most species solid. Counselor Drevex's crystalline form sparkled with concern. They had no emergency communication devices, no rescue plans. None, Morby confirmed. Their technology was primitive. They survived through preparation, adaptability, and sheer determination. The images changed to show more recent events. This is Maria Coleman, Krelax said. She was trapped under collapsed buildings after an earthquake. She survived for 5 days with no water and severe injuries before being rescued. A senior professor raised a tentacle. How is this possible? No sentient species should be able to endure such conditions. That's what makes humans unique, Pelqua explained. They evolved on a planet that constantly tried to kill them. Those who survived passed on their resilience to the next generation. The display changed to show humans in spacesuits. Most concerning is that humans are now venturing beyond their deadly homeworld, Morby said. Their technology is advancing rapidly. Within the past century, they've gone from primitive flight to landing on their moon and sending probes to nearby planets. Counselor Drevexa moved closer to the display. Their psychological profile suggests a species that seeks challenges and new frontiers. If they develop faster than light travel, they would spread throughout the galaxy, Krelax finished, and they would find most of our worlds extraordinarily hospitable compared to Earth. The Great Hall fell silent as everyone contemplated this possibility. There's something else, Pelqua added quietly. Humans have remarkable endurance not just physically, but mentally. They can endure hardships for extended periods while maintaining hope for the future. She displayed images of humans rebuilding after disasters, caring for sick family members over many years, and working multiple jobs to support their young. In our research, Morby concluded, We found countless examples of humans persisting against seemingly impossible odds. This trait, perhaps more than their physical resilience, makes them potentially dangerous or potentially valuable allies. Counselor Drevex's crystalline form glowed with decision. The Council must consider this carefully. A Deathworld species with such determination could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. After the presentation, the Galactic Council moved their discussions to a private chamber. The 3 student researchers were invited to join them, a rare honor that left Krelax, Morby, and Pelquan nervous but proud. The council chamber was a beautiful space with walls that seemed to shift like flowing water. 7 council members sat in a semicircle, each representing a major galactic species. Counselor Drevexa took her place among them. "We have reviewed your research thoroughly," said the head counselor, a massive being with 4 arms and skin that glowed softly. "Now we must decide how to proceed regarding Earth." Projected above the center of the room was a real-time image of Earth, peacefully spinning against the blackness of space. "Our biggest concern," said a counselor with insect-like features, "is their space program. How close are they to achieving interstellar travel?" Krelax stepped forward. "Their current technology is primitive by our standards, but they're advancing rapidly. We've detected recent experiments with new propulsion systems." He displayed images of human space activities. "These are their current exploration vehicles. Simple chemical rockets with limited range and durability, but they're constantly improving them." The display showed Commander Julia Wright and pilot Sam Bennett boarding a spacecraft, their faces determined despite the obvious dangers. They strapped themselves to explosive devices and willingly risked death just to reach orbit around their own planet. Morby explained, "Most species would never take such risks, even with advanced safety systems, and they're specifically looking for habitable worlds." Pelqua added, "Their scientists have identified several promising planets in nearby star systems. They're already making plans to visit them when their technology allows." A counselor with a spherical body floated forward. "The question is not if they will achieve interstellar travel, but when. And what will happen when they discover they are not alone in the universe. We've analyzed their fictional entertainment about first contact scenarios," Krelax said. "Many humans expect alien species to be hostile. They often portray themselves as defending Earth against invaders. A natural assumption for a species from a death world," noted Counselor Drevexa. "When your planet constantly tries to kill you, you learn to expect threats everywhere." The head counselor's glow brightened thoughtfully. "What options do we have?" A thin, tall counselor with multiple eyes spoke up. "There are 3 logical choices. First, we could establish contact now, while their space travel is limited. We could guide their development and integrate them into galactic society gradually. Second," continued another counselor, "we could implement containment protocols. Place monitoring stations around their solar system to ensure they don't expand beyond it." The chamber was silent for a moment before the head counselor asked, "And the third option?" "Preemptive measures," the insect-like counselor said quietly, "before they become a true threat." Pelqua's body turned a shocked shade of white. "You can't mean elimination. That would violate every principle of galactic law." "It would indeed," the head counselor agreed firmly, "and it is not an option we would ever consider. We are discussing potential threats, not considering genocide." Besides, Morby added hastily, "Our research suggests humans would be nearly impossible to eliminate completely. Their survival instincts and adaptability are extraordinary. Some would likely survive any attempt, and then they would certainly become the enemy we fear." Krelax moved closer to the central display. "There's another factor to consider. Humans have qualities that could make them valuable allies." He showed new images. Human doctors working tirelessly during disease outbreaks, engineers developing technologies to protect their environment, and ordinary people helping each other during disasters. Despite evolving on a death world, or perhaps because of it, humans have developed strong cooperation skills and remarkable problem-solving abilities. Krelax explained, They thrive in conditions that most galactic species would find unbearable. Imagine having such allies for exploring dangerous planets or handling crisis situations. Pelqua suggested. They could go places and do things that would kill most of us. The head counselor looked at all the others. This requires further study before any decision is made. But one thing is clear. Earth and its humans will have a significant impact on our future, one way or another. 1 week later, the Great Hall of the Galactic Academy was filled to capacity. News of the Earth research had spread throughout the neighboring star systems, bringing scientists, diplomats, and security experts eager to learn about this Deathworld species. The 3 student researchers sat nervously on a raised platform, awaiting the council's announcement. The head counselor stepped forward, his 4 arms raised for silence. After careful consideration, the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding Earth. The hall grew quiet. Every being present understood the importance of this moment. We have determined that first contact with humans is inevitable. They are advancing rapidly and will achieve interstellar travel within a few of their generations, the head counselor continued. Rather than waiting for them to discover us, we will establish controlled contact within the next 5 Earth years. Murmurs spread through the crowd, some excited, others concerned. But before this occurs, the head counselor added, we need more information. We are establishing a research station in Earth's solar system to observe them more closely, and the 3 students who discovered Earth's true nature will lead this project. Krelax, Morby, and Pelqua looked at each other in shock. This was an honor beyond anything they had expected. We accept this responsibility, Krelax said, his voice steady despite his surprise. We will continue to study humans and prepare detailed recommendations for first contact protocols. Counselor Drevexa stepped forward, her crystalline form catching the light. There is still significant debate about whether humans represent a threat or an opportunity. We must approach this carefully. That is why, the head counselor explained, we want the research team to present their final observations today. These young researchers have spent more time studying humans than anyone else in the galaxy. All eyes turned to the 3 students. This was their moment to influence the future relationship between humans and the galactic community. Pelqua moved to the center of the platform, her transparent body glowing with confidence. We've shown you the physical capabilities of humans and their remarkable resilience. But there's something more important we've observed. The display showed humans planting trees in areas destroyed by fire, rebuilding homes after storms, and teaching their young. Humans don't just survive on their Deathworld. They actively work to improve it, Pelqua explained. They've recognized the damage their early development caused to their planet, and many are working to repair it. Morby joined her. They value knowledge and exploration. Their history shows a constant drive to understand their world and the universe beyond. They're curious, just like us. The display changed to show human art, music, and literature. Despite evolving on a world of constant danger, they've created beauty, Morby continued. They tell stories, create music, and make art that expresses complex emotions. They ponder philosophical questions about their existence, just as we do. Krelax completed their presentation. Most importantly, humans show remarkable capacity for growth. Their earliest history was violent, but they've gradually developed more peaceful ways to resolve conflicts. They're still evolving socially, even as their technology advances. The display showed humans of different appearances working together, helping each other after disasters, and celebrating achievements as a community. Yes, humans are dangerous, Krelax concluded. Their physical capabilities, combined with their technology, could make them formidable enemies. But everything we've studied suggests they would prefer to be friends, explorers, and trade partners rather than conquerors. The head counselor nodded slowly. Then we will prepare for friendship while remaining cautious. Your research station will be the first step toward eventual contact. As the meeting concluded, the 3 students looked at the image of Earth still floating above them, a small blue planet that had produced a species unlike any other in the known galaxy. "Do you think they're ready to learn they're not alone?" Pelqua asked quietly. "Ready or not," Morby replied, "their future is now connected to ours." Krelax smiled. "And just think how excited they'll be to discover there are worlds out there even more hospitable than their deadly home."